In this video, I'll show you how to work with your data and analyze it like we do in science class. Now, typically, once we've collected data, we need to look at the graphical relationship of that data and make a decision about what trend that data fits. In other words, what does the shape of that curve tell us about the relationship between the, in this case, period and length? Now, the nice thing about spreadsheet programs is that they allow you to put trend lines in. Essentially, they allow you to do linearization without going through the process of manually linearizing your data. Now, there are two ways to do this. For instance, I recognize this as a period versus length, this period versus length graph as a side opening parabola. So what I could do is I could add another set of data over here, which I'm going to call period caret 2, which means period squared. I know that if I square the period, or I'm fairly confident, it will linearize this set of data. So in the spreadsheet, I can use a formula. So I go into the first cell where I want my new data to appear, and I'll hit equals to tell it an equation is coming. And I want to square the period to the left of it. So I'm going to click on the single period, and then I'm going to hit caret 2, and that will square that data. Now, the beauty of the spreadsheets is I can just click and drag all the way down, and that is copying the formula. But what it's doing is it knows, because I clicked on the cell 2 columns to the left, as I move down here, the next cell isn't going to refer to the previous row. It's going to automatically update to the current row. The only thing I need to do here is make sure that where I don't have any data previously, I'm not going to be graphing a new 0. So as I run down, I see that I have a couple zeros in here, which just corresponds to data that people didn't input. So now I am ready to graph. So once again, I am going to click and highlight the data that I want, and I can insert a new scatter chart, just like I showed you in my previous video about graphing data in spreadsheets. Now, I should also be able to go into my current graph and go to Advanced Edit. And I should be able, if I go back to Start, I should be able to add another range. So if I go to Select Range, I can add another range. And before, I graphed B and C. Now I want to graph B and E. That refers to the columns. So, whoops. So with my cursor in there, I'm going to click B, oops, B, and if I hold Control, E. Sorry about that. I know that I'm on sheet 1, and so I can add the range for all the B values, and I want that to run from B1 to B1005. Essentially, I want to pattern it like the one above it. Now, the one above it says it took all the data from B1 in the top left all the way to C1005 in the bottom right. I actually don't want to include column C or D, so I'm going to have to skip between columns. So all I have to do is put a semicolon there. And now I'm going to say also get E1 colon to E1005. This is kind of the manual way of doing it. And when I hit OK, you'll notice it's now showing me a preview. It's picked up both of those sets of data. Now, something pretty neat has happened here. What has happened is that red data is my period squared series, essentially my linearized data of the regular period, or my blue data. If I go down to the series option in Customize, I can click to period squared, and this time it's going to be very easy to include a linear trend line. Now, in Microsoft Excel, you have a whole bunch of options for trend lines. In Google Spreadsheets, you only have linear and exponential. So in Google Spreadsheets, you're going to need to linearize your data manually in most cases prior to fitting a linear trend line to your data. Now, once I have that trend line in there, you see it shows up, and I can label it however I want. Show the r-squared value, which is basically how closely that line follows the data. I can change the color of the line, the thickness, and as the label, instead of trend line for period squared, I'm going to use the equation. Now I see that the equation pops up, and if I hit update, it's going to pop up over there. Look how nicely that data linearized, and I get y equals some number x plus the y-intercept with a pretty high confidence level here. So just remember that y refers to period squared and x refers to length. And that's how to linearize data. I now have a mathematical relationship for my data in a spreadsheet program. Microsoft Excel works very similar to this. It works under an insert trend line option, and then you can select a whole bunch of different trend line shapes.